Welcome, everybody, to the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. All right. This is your host, Chase Steffes. We got our other host, Derek Larger, right over here. And we got a short and simple podcast for you today. Nah, it's probably going to be long with the way that we talk about
Yeah, I know,
everything.
right? Nothing's ever simple and short, sweet, to the point with us, man.
I know
Drag this out.
we could talk football all day long, and that's the best part about it because both me and you know more than half the average people that talk about this kind of stuff, and it's fun. We love it. But getting into it to start with, there are a few injuries that we would like to discuss going into it. Even though it is only Wednesday, not every team has their full report out on injured players. One that we need to talk about is now that Matt Rule is out of Carolina for good, we've got Steve Wilks stepping in, being the interim head coach. And his first priority is figuring out who is going to be the starting quarterback this week because we have yet to figure out the status of Sam Darnold, and we have yet to figure out whether or not he would go with Sam Darnold or PJ Walker in this sense because Baker Mayfield has also been ruled out for this week, 2 to 6 weeks due to a high ankle sprain that he has suffered. And Derek, we have been seeing a lot more high ankle sprains in a lot of players, not just quarterbacks, a lot of players around the league. And George Kittle went to the media after one of his games saying that he is blaming the turf fields that these players are playing on as due to a lot of the ACL tears, Achilles tears, and high ankle sprains that they are suffering. Do you agree with what he's saying, or do you think that like these players are not taking the necessary precautions to keep themselves healthy?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think we kind of mentioned this briefly just a few weeks ago. I mean, it's very clear. It's very evident that, I mean, you just take a look at the evidence of from the time that turf fields were introduced into not only professional sports, but at the collegiate level, at the high school level, at the elementary level, everything. There is a clear distinction if you look at the data between the turf fields and the amount of lower body injuries that you sustain. It's not the fact that teams are, not warming up properly or aren't getting enough nutrition and things of that nature. Like it's not. It just simply isn't. It's the fact that these turf fields have clinically been proven to the fact that your feet stick to the turf a lot more than it does to the natural ground. And therefore, when your lower body gets hit, it is a much more likely chance for you to sustain a lower body injury over a period of time with those turf fields rather than regular fields. I brought up the example a few weeks ago of Paris Campbell when he ended up tearing his MCL and PCL all in the same hit, because if that foot doesn't get stuck in the turf and doesn't plant the way that it does, then that injury would most likely have not occurred. But it did occur because that foot did not leave the ground at a coordinated time that it would have if you had had natural grass. And it's happens more and more frequently. Like I've had lower body injuries, Chase, a lot when I was younger, and I'd roll my ankles and everything all the time, but that usually never really got to me. But when I started playing on the turf my senior year, I played my entire senior year with pain right behind where my knee was. And I never had that before, but I felt like it had something to do with the strain that was going because we installed a new turf field that previous winter. And that was what was different, is that, we were on these turf fields and I could feel my knees starting to, feel a little bit more strain when I was on these fields versus being out on a grass field. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely the truth that there is going to be a lot more lower body injuries. And there's a couple of, big names that are going to be out now because of some of this stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just don't think anything's going to change with it, though.
I don't think so either. I mean, George Kittle also said that, if he's going to play on turf field, he would like it all to be the same turf because like his analogy that he used or example is you don't have hockey players skating on different ice every time they play. You don't have basketball players playing on different wood every time that they go out on the courts. So why do we have to go out on different turf fields when we could all have the exact same one and it would be just fine? But, you know, I agree. I think that they should just go with the natural grass. It is a lot harder to keep up and maintain, but you will see a lot less injuries go on in the league if you would go ahead and just continue to use natural grass. But moving on to another injury that we have, and this one is, the big one that has been going over the internet and memes over the past 3 weeks is Tua Tagovailoa has now been ruled out officially for this week as well. Now, I think that this is a smart decision on Mike McDaniel's part, a smart decision on the Miami Dolphins' part, and a smart decision on Stephen Ross's part, because if they would have put him back out there again this week and he had another neurological issue, his career not only would have been done, but they would have probably been facing potential lawsuits but not only the NFL, PA, but Tua's family as well. So, Derek, I think that this is a very good thing that they're doing, making him sit out this week and making sure that he's 100% before he comes back to play.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. We've seen what's been going on with everything, and then these new protocols coming out because of the lack of accountability of keeping him out the first time. And it's safe to say that the Dolphins are definitely taking the precautionary road to avoid any issues going into it. And of course, it doesn't make it any easier due to the fact that their backup quarterback is also in the protocol, right? So, he got hurt in the Jets game on the first play of the whole game and ends up getting a concussion as well. So now your third stringer's coming in, but, it's safe to say that Tua's definitely not ready if, they're calling it straight off on Wednesday. And that just lets you know that they definitely don't feel like he is particularly ready to step back onto the field. Like you said, it's probably going to be another week or two before we maybe see Tua back. I mean, there are still people that are in his ear trying to tell him to not play the rest of the year. We'll see if that's something that happens, but it sounds like every indication is that Tua wants to come back and wants to play. So, of course, you want him to, but you also have to take extra precaution because of, where your hand is being placed right now at the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know Tua's body or his brain or anything on how he felt. But after that Buffalo game, when he came back in, I feel like he suffered a significant brain bruise or brain bleed, and he just made it a lot worse when he got hit in the Bengals game that Thursday night. And honestly, I think that if this man does get another concussion in his career or gets something even like as severe, or if not like half as severe, then he still should retire from the game of football, because it is not worth it. We have seen guys like Luke Kuechly walk away from the game early due to concussion issues, because your head, brain, and everything like that, your headspace is the most important part of your body, and you got to make sure that you keep your head right before anything else. And we've seen what CTE is doing to Antonio Brown, so we got to make sure that these issues are addressed and taken care of. One more injury concern for some people is TJ Watt is out for one more week. They said that it could be longer because I've been reading reports that there is a minor setback in his recovery and he might miss another week or two after this. But that's barring any other things this week. He might be back as early as next week or as late as 2 weeks from now. But TJ Watt is desperately needed on that Steelers defensive line, and they are 0-8 without him in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And he's a big key piece that is missing from that defense.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you see the huge difference when TJ Watt is not out there. I mean, even if he doesn't have a huge 3 or 4 sack game, just his presence alone, you have to adapt your offense away from him in order to be able to minimize his effects, right? And when he's not out there, that defense or the offense is completely changing. She just taking a nap.
Yeah, she's dead.
just laying upside down. But yeah, I mean, it's clear as day. TJ Watt's one of the best players in the NFL, and his presence is known. And you certainly hope he's coming back soon. Cause yeah, I heard people even say that, they were hoping he would be back this week. And it just goes to show you how freaking quick that guy freaking heals, how quickly the Watt brothers in general freaking heal, because that was an injury that happened week 1, and they said that at minimum should be waiting till week 8 to come back. But now we're talking about, him potentially being back for week 7. I mean, it's insane how quick these guys deal with these injuries, and certainly hope that TJ Watt gets back soon, because the Steelers and the NFL are not the same without him.
No, they are definitely are. And you're right about the Watt brothers being a different breed, because did you hear how JJ Watt's heart stopped and they had to restart it?
Yeah, I'll talk to everybody real quick, because this was a medical misrepresentation because of what he said and what a lot of people don't understand. Again, we're not doctors, so sometimes we forget this. His heart actually did not stop. It went into AFib, which VFib is when your heart stops. AFib is when there's an irregular heartbeat. So therefore, if it stays in AFib for too long, it has the ability to stop. But his heart, in fact, did not actually stop, but they did use the paddle boards to kind of shock his heart back into rhythm a little bit, which again, everybody got mistaken for, did it stop or did it just have an irregular heartbeat? Either way, both extremely dangerous in that situation. And I mean, prayers up to freaking JJ, man, because, he just had a kid. And, after that game, after the game 2 weeks ago, when he was in his press conference and everyone was asking him about it, he got emotional because he was thinking to himself, like, it's kind of one of those moments that you take a second and you realize just what could have potentially happened and what you would be leaving behind, and sometimes that stuff doesn't hit you until you have a moment where you're talking about it, and then that thought just comes into your head. And I've had a few of those, and everybody has those every once in a while. And, I hated what that reporter said to him, trying to justify him playing in that game, for all things in consideration. Like, shut the hell up. Let the man
What'd they say?
accept the fact that he almost freaking died, and that he could, he doesn't need to know that, oh yeah, he made a huge play for the Cardinals in that game that won him the game. Like, he does not care about the game in that moment. That was a bigger moment than that. The fact that a 31-year-old man who is extremely healthy could have potentially died just because of an irregular heart rhythm. Like, he doesn't need to hear any of that from you. But yeah, JJ, I mean, yeah, I certainly hope that maybe that's a thing where, maybe he doesn't play football after this. I don't know if football has anything to do with it. It potentially could, it potentially may not, but maybe it is time potentially for JJ after this season to kind of step away and be like, maybe I do need to focus more on my heart, and I need to focus more on being there with my family. Because like you said, I mean, you have 1 or 2 more moments of that, there might be a different outcome than what was happening there.
Yeah, no, me and you constantly have seen time and time again where players have ended their careers early due to injury, and we have seen a lot of fans get pissed off for the injuries that they have suffered over their career, and the fact that they decide to retire early from what they love to do. It's not that they want to, it's just they have no choice. And you got a lot of fans getting pissed off because you see these athletes taking care of themselves mentally and physically and going away from what they love to do to make sure that they are around for their families and their bodies are good. And it sickens me to this day where, a player has put it all out there for this entire city and fan base that he has played for almost his entire career, and then just see him get booed by a lot of people because he made a life choice to be around for his kids and his wife and leave the game early. Like that just sickens me to my core to see that kind of stuff, Derek. And I hate when people do it because taking care of your body is important.
Absolutely.
So anyway, moving on to the next topic, since we are talking about we're talking about quarterbacks and injuries and everything. Let's get into a situation over in Washington where we had Ron Rivera has been under a lot of fire lately over the past week, because after the game, they were talking about his division and how you have everybody in that division except for the Commanders at 4-1 or 5-0. And when he was asked, he's just like, you see all of your competition around you and everybody in your division all succeeding. Why is that the case? And he's just like, it's the quarterback. The quarterback is the reason why they are succeeding. The quarterback is the reason why we are not succeeding. And he basically threw Carson Wentz under the bus. And even though he may be right in this sense, he still should not have said that and should have, directed it towards a different way. Do you think that he was in the wrong or in the right for what he said?
Well, first things first, we talk about all the time, right, that when it comes to a coach, that as much as sometimes we as fans want to say that we wish our coach would sometimes throw some guys under the bus for their performances, the problem that you have with that argument is a lot of times is that if you do it and you call out one specific player, aka the position that is supposed to lead the team and what they're supposed to do, then that is where it becomes an issue. That is the big issue of it all, because you're deflecting blame towards Carson Wentz. Now, Carson Wentz has definitely taken a large blow of criticism for everything, right? We have been talking about it for a long time, Chase. I mean, Carson Wentz took the blame in Philadelphia, right? For why Philadelphia was so terrible the last year that Doug Peterson was there. And then he got traded to Indianapolis. The next year, that epic meltdown from the Colts that year, Carson Wentz was the downfall guy. Frank Reich and Chris Ballard both saying that, at the end of it all, and Irsay even coming out saying that we needed a new change because it's just not there at quarterback. And then you go to Washington, and then you're not even halfway into the season yet, and your coach is now telling everyone that you are the reason why we are not as good as every other team in the NFC East, which, I mean, could potentially be a good argument. I mean, it definitely could also, it definitely is a true statement that Carson Wentz is not playing as good as every other quarterback in the NFC East. That's very true. But one, it destroys the confidence of the quarterback. He went on apologizing, saying that was uncalled for of him, and then tried to say some good things about Carson, trying to go away from it. Can't get away from it. You said it. You said it plain as day. And yep. The only problem that you have now is that people are seeing the broader picture. Well, let's see why you're bad in the NFC East, right? Well, you haven't played anybody from the NFC East yet. Or you did play the NFC East. You did play the Eagles, and you got absolutely swamped because you gave up 8 sacks in that game, right? Your offensive line stinks. You can't get your offense going. Your defense is not very good anymore. You've lost a lot of players. You're not doing anything to help yourself there. So, I mean, is it Carson Wentz's fault that his offensive line can't block? Is it Carson Wentz's fault that the defense isn't as good anymore? Is it Carson Wentz's fault that the fact that the offense is running a scheme that they're not getting better at? No, it's the fact that the coach is the one that is supposed to take initiative to make them better. Yep. I understand Carson Wentz may potentially be the worst quarterback in the NFC East, but look at the Giants. Look at the Giants. Who came into this season, Chase, thinking that Daniel Jones was a better quarterback than Carson Wentz? Even the Giants people who hated Carson Wentz nobody would have said that Carson Wentz was a worse quarterback than Daniel Jones. Nobody. And going into this season, you got Cooper Rush playing for the Cowboys right now. Like, Cooper Rush, and even Ron Rivera mentioned it. Like, yeah, they got Cooper Rush, but Cooper Rush has been in the system for, a long time. He understands how it goes. He gets the rhythm. He's been in there for a while. Like, okay, then why are you not using that same argument for your quarterback in defense of your quarterback who has only been in your building for about 6 months? Like, versus the guy that's been there for like 3-4 years as a backup. And even then, they're not losing with Cooper Rush. The Cowboys have yet to lose a game with Cooper Rush at quarterback. And yet your team is sitting there 1-4 with the worst record in all of the NFL right now. It's not just Carson Wentz. It's everything. And I think people are starting to see through the BS that Ron Rivera is just deflecting blame and is just making Carson Wentz the scapegoat because that's what everyone else has done throughout his career.
Yeah, I mean, I halfway agree with Ron. I do think Carson is a bad quarterback. I don't think that he's been the same since his ACL tear back in 2017 when he was leading that Philadelphia team to the promised land. Like, he was 3 games shy of finishing the season out and going into the playoffs and possibly having an MVP type season. And ultimately it just fell apart with them towards the end. And you're right. He's been partially the one to blame throughout his entire career on why things didn't work out. But in reality, could it just be all of the coaching that has been through or been the reason why? And another argument is, could Ron Rivera be a product of being carried by a good defensive Panthers team and a good offensive Panthers team for the years that he was there? We don't know. That is to be seen. And, we don't know. And honestly, at the start of this, Derek, when we first started doing this, before the season started, I made the prediction that Sam Howell would either be in by week 6 or week 8. I'm still sticking with that. I don't think that Carson is the answer. And I do think that at some point in time, they will go with Sam Howell and he will step in and be that spark that they need and lead them to the promised land. But that is to be seen and to be determined with it. Moving on to the next thing, we all saw on Monday night the incident that happened with Davante Adams and the cameraman that he pushed. We all know that, yes, he should not have done it. He is apologetic. He understands what he did was wrong. He understands that he's under a microscope when it comes to him being an athlete, especially for a big organization like the Raiders. And as big as an athlete as he is and as good as he is, obviously he's going to be prone to all this criticism. But do you think that the guy was hurt enough to go to the hospital and then also file a lawsuit and a police report for assault on Davante Adams? Because from the video, it didn't look like this guy was hurt that bad. But then again, we're not doctors. We didn't see the guy up in person, and we don't know the extent of the injuries, Derek. So what's your thoughts on this?
I don't know. Like you said, it's very hard to say what kind of injuries he had. I'd have to look up the actual hospital records to see like what kind of injuries he sustained, because nobody ever said anything. Nobody ever said like they were severe or that they were minor. You can go to the hospital to get treatments for a few cuts, right? Like that might have all it was, right? When he hit the concrete, might have just had like a few cuts on his hands or on his arms from when he fell back, right? And then now all of a sudden you're seeing this, you're seeing this lawsuit coming out. I can't remember I'd have to pull up Ian Rappaport's thing here, because I think he tweeted earlier what the criminal consequences of this were. Okay, yeah, so said point of clarity, Davante Adams has been charged with a city of ordinance violation, which is a little lower than a state misdemeanor assault charge per the prosecutor's office, and carries a fine of $250 to $1,000 or up to 180 days in jail or both. I mean, I don't think he's going to get jail time. I truly don't believe that. Probably make him pay $1,000 and whatever it costs for that man to go to the hospital and be done with it. I really don't think I don't think that there's going to be a lawsuit in, that's going to like get millions of dollars out of Devontae, because unless you get an extremely power hungry judge that wants to do that, because this is nothing more than a guy stepped in the way of somebody. That guy pushed him out of the way. And like, it'd be completely different if Devontae was walking to the guy specifically and then decided to just push him out of pure spite or for no reasoning whatsoever. But I mean, there was intent involved, but you know, the guy putting himself in that situation is probably going to work against him in court. I can guarantee you Davante Adams is going to have better lawyers, better situation. He's got the money. Guarantee that there's almost nothing that comes out of this lawsuit, because except that the guy got like a major concussion and got like severe like injuries. But I mean, that's the only way I could see this getting to be worse than what it is, because it just didn't seem like, you're right, it didn't seem like the guy got severely hurt by just that measly little shove. But then again, you and I don't know, but this is something we'll monitor. But of course, I truly don't think there's going to be anything that comes of it.
No, you're right. I don't think that there is either. And I think that this guy is blowing it way out of proportion. I would have just asked for an apology from Devontae, and not one over the internet or media. I would have asked for him to come to me straight and just apologize to me face to face, and then we would have been done with it. But regardless, like I said, people are making this out to be such a bigger deal than what it actually is. And, you know, this guy is just trying to get money and be a power hungry person. So Devontae, I hope that everything works out with him. And I hope that, you know, he does not face any jail time, which I doubt he will. Knowing the NFL, he'll probably get like a 1-game suspension and maybe like a $20,000 fine for violating a policy.
Yeah, he's probably going to get He's probably going to get more action dealt by the NFL than what he would in an actual like legal battle in the court system. That's going to be my guess. Did you hear about the Bobby Wagner thing? The guy that he pushed. And the guy who they said that he filed a police report against Bobby Wagner too. Apparently that guy sustained a concussion from when Bobby hit him. I think he's trying to use that as a file in the police report to go against him. I just said, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I mean, that's
this dude ran on the field with like a smoke bomb, like.
Yeah, well, yeah, and everyone's like, we don't know what this guy has on him. Like, Bobby's a freaking hero, man. Took the guy out. You never know what that guy had. He had a freaking smoke bomb on him. How the heck, what else could we possibly say that guy had on him? If he had a smoke bomb and was able to get through security, like what else do we think he could have potentially had? I mean, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to be made of that case, because, I mean, the guy was in the wrong in the first place for being there. If he doesn't even entertain that idea, then he would have never gotten a concussion and gotten absolutely blasted by one of the hardest hitting men in the world. So,
right. But side note, fire those security guards for letting somebody in with a smoke bomb. Like,
dude.
If you let them in with the smoke bomb, what the hell else are you letting them in with? Like, come on. But anyway, I digress. So moving on to the next situation that we've got is, over the past couple weeks, we have seen, like we've said, we've seen quarterbacks get injured, and we've seen their backups take full effect. Obviously, we've got some other situations in terms of like the Browns, where Jacoby Brissett, the backup, is filling in for Deshaun because he is suspended, so that is different. But we have seen backup quarterbacks step in because their starter has gotten injured. or the backup to the starter has gotten injured. So in this case with Bailey Zappi, we have had it to where Brian Hoyer and Mac Jones both got injured, and Bailey Zappi stepped in. And the first game he looked bad, but this past week he looked really dominant versus the Patriots. And credit to Bill Belichick, credit to his system, credit to being quarterback friendly. But are we seeing another situation of a Tom Brady-esque quarterback here, Derek? Because the last time the Patriots had a first-round quarterback that got taken over by a backup was Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady, and then they never looked back after that. I mean, we do know how good Bailey Zappi is, breaking Joe Burrow's touchdown record of 62 touchdowns in college and being overlooked because of a small school. Are we going to see another Tom Brady situation here?
I don't think so. I think that's the clear thing we always say when it comes to Bill Belichick, right? If it's not Tom Brady, who's going to be the next Tom Brady, right? Like, who's going to be that guy that's going to come in, like nobody knows about him, comes in and then just sets the league on fire, right? Like, that's what we always say, especially when it's the Patriots, because we want to see, the Patriot dynasty come back in some way, right? I mean, Bailey Zappi has done a fantastic job of filling in since Mac Jones has went out. You saw in Green Bay, he gave them a chance to win. They ultimately just didn't win. And then this last week, you go in and you face the number one scoring offense in the entire NFL. You make them lay a big fat goose egg, and then you actually play relatively well. Bailey Zappi played well. He didn't play great, but he played well. And it was enough for them to move forward. They got the win. And I told you that was the one of the few ones that I did get you on last week, was saying, watch the Patriots come in with a good game plan. And with this quarterback having a week to know the offense by himself, watch what this guy is able to do. And I was able to get that one. And, there's always the possibility of the next Tom Brady. But when you look at, we've already got the next Tom Brady's right here in our league now, man. We don't need to worry about the backups, the ones that come in out of nowhere and take the league by storm. We already have the GOATs of this generation. We got Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and other guys like that are going to set this league on fire for the next 10 years, because that's just how good they are already. But when it comes to like Bailey Zappi and this situation, I will give you this, though. Bill Belichick never did close the door on Bailey Zappi being the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. He did say, they asked, like, what are the chances of him keeping the starting job when Mac Jones comes back fully healthy? And he didn't say that Mac Jones was going to be the starter when he comes back. Now, he didn't say that Bailey Zappi was going to be that, but he also didn't say that Mac Jones is going to sure enough be the starter when he gets back. So we could see if I'm under the impression that if your team keeps winning with you at quarterback, then that's what's important. And, it's why Cooper Rush is going to be the quarterback again this next week for Dallas, even though Dak Prescott's throwing again. You just feel confident going in with what you have if you're winning these games. And that could definitely be an interesting topic.
Yeah, no, it truly is going to be an interesting topic. And I do think that Matt Ryan should be benched for Sam Ehlinger. We should see what he's got and is able to do. So, no, it's going to be interesting to see what the Cowboys situation is and see whether or not Mike McCarthy actually does keep Cooper Rush out there, considering the fact that he is now undefeated since he's been named the starter. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But now going into the next topic, Derek, we have power rankings that come out each week, letting us know like the top 5-10 teams in the NFL. And right now, me and you are going to go over our top 5 best teams and our top 5 worst teams in the NFL. Derek, you want to start this off with going from 5 to 1 and why you have them in the order that you do?
Yep. Number 5 for me is going to be the Baltimore Ravens right now. I just look at what Lamar Jackson's doing this year, and Lamar Jackson is, putting up numbers that are very similar to what he had in his MVP season from a few years ago. And what he's doing with this Ravens team, despite the fact that, people said that he doesn't have a great receiving core and that his offensive line's had injuries, his running backs have had injuries. There's questions on the defense. They're still at 3-2 in the NFL right now, and Lamar Jackson has them operating at a very good pace right now. And I just think that when you take into account everything that he has been, the Ravens can go as high as Lamar Jackson's going to take them. I think there's a few more well-rounded teams, but I'm just simply looking at the pure awesomeness that is Lamar Jackson and giving him the nod over a few of these other teams that might have slightly better records than them, but that's just where I have them there. Number 4, I have the 49ers. I know the 49ers record is not as good as some other teams, but their defense is number 1. Their defense is number 1 in every category, Chase. I mean, they started this year off slow with having Trey Lance as the quarterback. I mean, I don't think they've lost a game since Jimmy Garoppolo has taken over. Well, they did lose. They did lose to the Denver Broncos in some weird, wacky way on Sunday Night Football. But other than that one, they have been 3-1 since him returning back to the starting role. The offense looks like it's moving at a much more efficient pace now than what they had with Trey Lance. And like I said, this defense, they have the number 1 defense in the NFL, and they're playing at every level perfectly. And Nick Bosa is out there just tormenting quarterbacks. And as long as they remain healthy, San Francisco is going to be probably the second best team in the NFC, as long as that defense keeps playing the way that it is, because they're extremely scary. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, I know a lot of people are saying, man, why do you not have the Eagles at number 1? I like that they're winning. It's been very awesome to see them winning these games. And as their head coach, Nick Sirianni, who is a former OC at Indianapolis, love Nick Sirianni, love the job that they're doing. I just think from talent-wise, they have almost as much talent as any other team out there. I just think the problem is they're winning games, but they're not winning convincingly enough for me. And I think that they had a few gimmies with the fact that, the Jacksonville Jaguars committed 5 turnovers, right? And they had to play the Cardinals this last week, who are really bad right now, and because their kicker can't kick a field goal to save his freaking life, and they end up squeaking by in Arizona, right? I just think that when you look at some of the games they have played, they're winning, and congratulations, that's a good thing. That's all you need in the NFL is to win games, and that's just what's going to get you to the promised land. But I'm just not sold on them yet because I haven't seen their team take off and dominate a game yet. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. I know Kansas City struggled with the Raiders, but it went to show you that even when they aren't running the football and Travis Kelce only had 25 receiving yards, they were still able to beat you in so many ways that it's just like, that's just very Kansas City-esque, right? They look like the same team as before, and they just have had to adopt a whole new scheme, but yet they still look the same. And number 1 for me is the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, who've only lost 1 game this year. I mean, it's incredible. They're averaging 32 points a game. And it seems like other than the 1 game that they lost, every single game is high 30s, and they're scoring. They look offensively, they just look unstoppable. Outside of the Dolphins game, and even in the Dolphins game, they had double the amount of yardage in that game that the Dolphins did. They just didn't end up turning it into points for some weird freaking reason. But every single game, the Buffalo Bills just outbeat you in every aspect. They're running the ball more efficiently now. Josh Allen looking like the best quarterback in the NFL at the moment and just dropping dimes everywhere. I mean, they are so good and so dynamic offensively. And then their defense is not half bad either. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries. They're going to need some guys to come back before I feel like they're fully ready to take the crown. But they're going to get Tre'Davious White back here this next week. They're hoping to get Jordan Poyer back in the next few weeks. You know, this defense is starting to look really good too. I mean, Buffalo, they look phenomenal right now. So that's why they're my number one.
I can't, be mad at that. The Buffalo Bills have stepped up and proven to the whole league in the NFL why, they are it this year. And I do think that you will have teams entering the playoff scenario that will be going through Buffalo or Kansas City. It'll be going through one of those two. It remains to be seen on who's going to do it or like what's going to happen and everything, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, starting with my number 5, I'm going to go in a completely different direction. The Ravens are just outside my top 5. And I'm going to tell everybody this, like I told you, I am very high criticized with Lamar because, like I said, being a guy that is analyzing football and watching it the way that I do, I've been burnt on quarterbacks in the past that I have been really high on, given the praise, given them the credit that they deserve, and then all of a sudden they just fall off, they start playing bad, they get paid, whatever it may be. I have seen Lamar evolve and everything from what he's done, and I'm not taking any credit away from what he's done for his team. Yes, he has carried his team to victory. He has carried his team throughout the regular season and has carried them into the playoffs. But I am very high criticized of him because I have not yet seen him take over a game and be that surefire number one reason why they have won the game because of, his arm, his legs, whatever it may be. So I still want to see more from him, and I will never be afraid to admit when I'm wrong, Derek, and I will gladly say when I'm wrong about Lamar and the criticism that I'm giving him. But I've got the Ravens outside my top 5 for now. Let them keep going. Let's see what they can do. I'll put them in the top 5 by the end of the season if they continue to keep doing what they're doing. But a lot of love for Lamar, a lot of respect for him. I wanted to clear that up right now because everybody seems to think that I hate him and have a vendetta against him. I don't hate him. There's certain guys in the league I hate. Derrick Henry, Tom Brady, so on and so forth. So
I hear you top 5.
Top 5, number 5, the New York Giants. I got the New York Giants at number 5 because going into this season, nobody, not me, not you, nobody expected them to have the start that they did, that they are at 4-1.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll came over from Buffalo, and everybody was asking themselves, is this guy going to take over the league and take over having the same impact with the Giants and Daniel Jones as he did with Josh Allen? And through the first 5 weeks of the season, it is looking like it because you look at how the Giants have been playing and how Daniel Jones has been playing. Daniel Jones is playing lights out. His numbers are looking great. His accuracy's improved. His decision-making's improved. Everything has improved with Daniel Jones and the way that he is. And his Daboll's offense has gotten Saquon Barkley back to his old self. Because last year, even though Saquon was healthy, he was not looking like the old Saquon of old, like what he was when he first entered the league. And Daboll's offense has got him looking like this. And you can sit there and say, well, the Giants really haven't played any good, any big opponents. They lost by 6 points, 5 points to the Dallas Cowboys, which was not by much. And then they just beat the Green Bay Packers, who many even proclaim that even without Devontae, the Packers are still one of the top teams in the NFC to go up against. So yes, I am putting the Giants at my 5 spot. Now my 4 spot, I had it between the 49ers and between the Green Bay Packers, and I'm going to put the Packers at 3 I mean, at 4, just because even though they don't have Devontae, they are still winning games. With the small ball, Aaron Rodgers is trying to get the character development with his guys. He's trying to develop chemistry with them, trying to get them going, and they are still winning games, even though it is not blowing them out and winning big like what they did before. So it's remain to be seen about the Packers, and then 3, I've got the Eagles, just like you do. Like you said, they are the only undefeated team in the league. Why don't we have them at number 1? Jalen Hurts is playing insane, et cetera, et cetera. We have seen them play close games like what they have in the recency. We have not seen them blow opponents out extremely bad. We have seen them go toe to toe with the they beat the Lions by 5, by 3, and then they beat the Cardinals by 3, and then they lost. They won to another opponent by 7. So yes, it's not any drastic change that we're seeing, but all credit to the Eagles. And I've got the number 1 and number 2 flip flopped for me. I've got the Buffalo Bills at 2, the Kansas City Chiefs at 1. The Buffalo Bills are looking like the best team in the league, and with the way that they're playing, the only loss that they had was to the Dolphins. And like you said, they outplayed them and outperformed them by all aspects of the game. It's just they weren't putting the points on the board to prove it. And, you can blame it on half their defense being out. You can blame it on Gabe Davis not being there. You can blame it on whatever you want. But we have seen time and time again why Patrick Mahomes proves to be the best quarterback in the league. And we have seen time and time again that if you go against him, he will prove you wrong. And that Raiders game, it wasn't pretty, but he ended up pulling out that win and scoring 4 touchdowns to one guy to win that game. And they are winning in old fashioned instead of just throwing a bomb to Tyreek Hill all the time. So I got the Chiefs as my number 1 team in the league. So it's very interesting.
Well, I mean, I guess I can kind of get behind it. I can't get behind your number 5 and number 4. I can get behind your number 5. I can get behind it just because of the fact that, and you lost me with the fact that the Giants just beat the Green Bay Packers, and the fact that the Packers are ahead of them and your 4 and 5 is kind of a wish-wash for me. But when I look at where I ranked my teams, out of my top 5, 5 of those of the top 5 of those teams are in the top 7 in point differential for this year. So the San Francisco 49ers are the second best team in the NFL this year, Chase, in point differential. They're beating their opponents by a net point percentage of 47 points. So they've scored 47 more points for the first 5 weeks of this season than what their opponents have. Do you know who's number 1? And it's my number 1, the Buffalo Bills. They are beating their teams by 91 points. They are beating their teams by 30% more points than what they've allowed all season. They've allowed 61 points this season, which actually I think is tied for the lowest in the NFL this year with the San Francisco 49ers, but they have 152. Like they are not just beating teams, they're blowing out teams. And that's the differential and why I had them at number 1, because the Chiefs are actually number 4 in all of it in point differential. The top 5 teams in point differential this year are the Buffalo Bills, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Eagles, who are tied with 47. The Kansas City Chiefs with a 34, and the Jacksonville Jaguars with 31, which is hilarious because if you take away the fact that they absolutely murked the Colts, it might have been a different outcome, maybe. But
they murked the Chargers too, man.
Yeah, and the Chargers. Yeah, when the Chargers were absolutely getting destroyed. But yeah, that is how I came to my consensus. Was I was looking at not only the way that the record that you're seeing, but again, my Bills, 49ers, Eagles, Chiefs, and Baltimore. Baltimore is number 6 at 21, and they're tied with the Cowboys right now for that. So,
if I was going to swap out a team, Derek, if I was going to swap out a team, I would probably put the 49ers in there. I didn't realize how good their numbers actually were. So I'll go ahead and swap out my Packers pick and put the 49ers in there, but I'm sticking with my number 5 being the Giants.
With the Giants. I'm cool with the Giants. They're still in the top, like they're 11th. They're 11th with a 10-point differential. So I get it. So the numbers are not always everything, right? Like sometimes numbers change. I mean, I'm not going to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, right, and put them in my top 5 just because of the point differential. Because I mean, things change week in and week out, because it's easy to look at that number and just say, oh, the Jacksonville Jaguars are one of the most dominant. But no, they had 2 weeks where they absolutely dominated people. And then the other 3 weeks, they didn't look the same, right? So it's different. It's a huge difference in opinion on that. But yeah, that's why I had them going there. I just can't put the Packers in there right now because the Packers, they're just not cohesive right now. They're not cohesive. Their defense is okay, but their defense isn't great. Not like what it was 3 years ago when Matt LaFleur first got the job. And their offense, like, they're able to run the ball pretty efficiently, but obviously they're just not cohesive right now when it comes to the offensive passing attack. They're still trying to figure that out. Maybe later on down the year, Aaron Rodgers, like you said, does figure it out with these wide receivers, and then they start to look really freaking good, right? We've seen that happen before. They only have a 1-point differential. They've scored 97 points. They've given up 96. So it's as close as you can get to 500 there. But I do agree with your list, though. I can see why you would put Kansas City over Buffalo, just because, you know, we always have this argument, right? Ever since Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have become staples for their team, what is the one thing that we have always said the Kansas City Chiefs have over the Buffalo Bills? It's that Mahomes relationship with everything going on. It just looks and feels different. Like it feels like they're never out of the game.
Yeah, it feels right. And obviously that game last year kind of solidified it, you know, going back and forth in the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City game, going back and forth. And then, you know, the Bills, we've talked about this all offseason. The Bills thought that they had the game won, 13 seconds left. They tie the game, and then they go into overtime, and Patrick Mahomes ends up beating Josh Allen because of a freaking coin toss. And, you know, they never look back. But out of all these times that they've played each other, we have seen Patrick Mahomes come out on top. We have seen the Chiefs come out on top. And until they continue to not – or like until Mahomes consistently continues to get beat by these bigger guys like Burrow, Herbert, or Allen – I will consistently go with the Chiefs and consistently go with Mahomes over these guys because of how well that they've performed in their duties. And we will see this week because they've got the Chiefs and the Bills going against each other. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's going to be a great matchup to watch there. That one going to be fun. All right, well, guess it's time to talk about our
Niner gang.
Worst team. Wait a minute. Oh,
we got Niner gang in here.
Niner gangs in here.
Yeah.
Y'all absolutely broke the Panthers, man. That was the final straw for them. That was the final freaking straw.
You broke their quarterback, you broke their head coach, and you broke their OC.
All right. Let's go ahead and name the top 5 worst teams in the NFL. Do you want to go ahead and have me go first, or do you want to go first here?
I'll go ahead and go first. I've got the Texans at if we're going to go backwards.
From 32, 31, 30, 29, 28.
I've got the Bear 32 would be the worst. So I've got the Texans at the 32nd team in the league. They are the worst team in the league by far. We have seen it this year. The Bears and Texans played each other. The Bears ended up winning. The Texans are in a complete rebuild mode right now. We have seen it time and time again that, you know, now that they have an abundance of first-round picks for the next couple years, we're going to see what this team can do and see if they can build from scratch and from the ground up. People in that organization still believe in Davis Mills, but right now they really have no, you know, solid threat on offense other than Brandon Cooks, who do you really have on that offense that's scary? Then you go to their running backs. They've got no good running backs. They've got no good tight ends. Like, this offense and this team itself is just not built to compete and be good so far. So right now, I've got them at my worst team in the league. Then I've got the Commanders right behind them. The first game of the season, first 2 weeks of the season looked promising for the Commanders. Carson Wentz looked like he was back to his old self. He was looking like this team was taking off and starting to be good. And then they just laid a big goose egg. Wentz has been playing badly lately, been making stupid decisions, poor decisions. And with the offensive abundance of talent that they've got on that roster, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, they even just got Brian Robinson back. They have Antonio Gibson. Offensive talent is few and far between. It's just the quarterback situation is looking terrible. And the way that they're being coached, it's terrible right now. So I think that, the Commanders, if they were more competent at the quarterback position, it'd be a lot different. But I got them as the second worst team in the league. Then the third worst, I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, they're the first team in the league to fire their head coach this year. We have seen how badly that they have been playing. Everybody, including myself, thought Baker would do better. Do at least decent with the Panthers. Coming back off of his surgery, going to a new team, having the weapons that he has, we thought that he'd be decent and be winning games. But no, he's making that team look absolutely horrendous, making them look worse than what they are. And, they were poorly coached, poorly managed. And I think that this team in general is good. It's just they're not playing like it. They are playing terribly. The fourth worst team in the league I've got is the Bears. Just like, I don't really know if you can call them bad because of their play on the field, or more or less like the way that the team was built, because Ryan Poles has done a horrendous job at making Justin Fields look good and trying to get him prepared for the future and be the franchise quarterback. He's got no offensive line, no true solid weapons other than Darnell Mooney, like you said, would be a wide receiver 2 or 3 on another team. And, he is just making this team fall apart, and this team is going to lose probably their best weapon their best defensive player in the offseason, in Roquan Smith. So if the Bears don't start getting their stuff together, they're going to be labeled as the worst team in the league and possibly have a top 5 pick this year. And then my last one, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are, you could sit there and say that they're playing well with Geno Smith, but we all know that this team is not built for success. And when better teams come along, they are going to absolutely wipe the floor with the Seahawks and, not compete with them. Or the Seahawks are not going to compete. Geno's magic will run out. He is not going to be lighting it up like he has been the past couple weeks all season long. I've got the Seahawks as probably in my top 5 for one of the worst teams in the league. So that's my top 5 right there.
There's a lot of correct answers to a lot of bad teams on this list.
Yes.
You can go probably about 7 or 8 different ways with how bad some of these are. I'll just say this. These 2 teams did not make it into my top 5, but they definitely, you could make arguments for why they should. The Raiders is one of them. Starting the year 1-4. The only thing that's got them is the fact that they haven't been losing games by a lot. But with the talent that they have, they should not be losing games the way that they are. Very disappointing. And then when we're talking about the Lions, very close for me, because, one of the top scoring offenses actually has the second most points scored this year in total points, and yet they're like the 4th worst in point differential. They're really bad. So my top 5. So the worst team, I agree with you, the Texans. There's just nothing special about them. It's just, there really isn't. They lost to the freaking Bears, for God's sake. Like, that's how bad they are. And then the Bears is my number 31.
Yep.
I think the problem is it's not at their quarterback position. I think it's just due to the fact that their organization as a whole is not ran very well.
No,
you have
it's
a
not.
defensive-minded coach running an offense that has no weapons, that has no offensive line, has no identity. It is searching for somebody to make something better, and that team offensively is just a joke. And then number 3, for number 30, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers here.
Ooh, yeah, not a bad choice.
I would love to give them the benefit of the doubt that if they had TJ Watt back, this probably would end up being a different story.
That's one guy. I don't think that makes it different.
They'd still be bad. They'd still be bad, but TJ Watt might single-handedly alter a game or so every once in a while because of how good he is defensively. But the problem is they are a minus 51 in point differential. They are the worst in the NFL in point differential this year.
Yeesh.
That is bad. Even if you're having a issue with the quarterback situation, right? We know that they're probably one decent quarterback away from making things work, but their receivers are dropping balls. They can't run the football because their offensive line is terrible. They haven't been able to move the ball very efficiently all season long, even with Trubisky or Pickett. It's not going to matter. Their team as a dynamic is not very good. And I'm disappointed with the rest of their defense. You know, I know TJ Watt's out, but you still have some really solid players who are potential all-pro players. And this is the result you're giving it's bad. It's very, very bad. I'd go the Commanders at number 29 because, like we said before multiple times over, that it's not going very well for them. I just can't really do much when it comes to anything and everything in regards to their offense. I had a very difficult dilemma here for number 28. I have a very difficult dilemma. Very, very difficult dilemma. I'm just gonna say it. I think the Indianapolis Colts deserve to be here at number 28.
Wow.
Because let me just explain why. There are a couple other teams that have a worse point differential. I understand that, but there are only there are only 3 other teams that I didn't mention that have a worse point differential than they do, and that is the Los Angeles Rams, the Carolina Panthers, and the Seattle Seahawks. The Colts have scored the fewest points all season by any team. The second worst, the Denver Broncos.
Jeez.
And I mean, when you look at the points that were scored throughout all of it, I mean, the Colts are one of the worst teams in point differential at the end of the day. I don't care about record's sake. I don't care about point differential. I'm talking about this team can't score. I mean, Indy can't score. I mean, we talk about how the offense for Carolina and a few other teams are looking right now. The Colts are averaging 13.7 points a game.
We saw that last Thursday. They could not score. Nobody scored a single touchdown.
Nobody scored a single touchdown. It's terrible. The 2 worst teams at scoring the ball were playing that Thursday night, and it's staying the same way. The Colts have scored 69 points in 5 games. I mean, they're not even averaging 14 points a game, Chase. That is terrible, and it's bad. So, Judy. She's got the little Halloween scarf on, too. I love that. Let me guess.
Yeah.
It was Christy's idea?
Yeah.
Love it. But yeah, that one, I hate doing that, but they can't score on anybody right now, man. I don't trust their offense. And if you can't score in this league, I don't care how good your defense is. I'll tell you this, when it looks from points allowed, like total points allowed, the Colts are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're the 10th best defense in the entire NFL in points allowed. I mean, they're only giving up 94 points a game. I mean, that's really good. They're up there with some of the best teams in the country when in regards to that. But they can't. But the problem is that there are only 3 teams inside the top 10 that don't have at least 100 points scored this year. And there's only one other team inside the top 10 in points allowed that has a negative point differential, and that's the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are the same way as the Colts right now. So, yeah, I have to go with the Indianapolis Colts at 28. But yep, we can either go to the top 5 quarterbacks or we can just go straight into predictions because we've already been going for over an hour.
Yep, let's go straight into the predictions. We'll do a top 5 quarterback and top worst quarterbacks next time we do this list. So let's just go ahead and get into our predictions now.
Okay.
And now I'm winning.
Yeah, shut up.
He's salty, everybody.
Yes, I am very salty. Okay. Week 6. Okay, so Commanders versus the Bears.
I'm going to go with the Commanders. Their offense is I think that this is a game where Carson Wentz is actually going to go off, and the offense is going to be proven to be too much for the Bears. So I'm going to go with the Commanders.
I'll go with the Commanders as well. It's kind of hard to pick the Bears on anything right now. So yeah. I'll go with the Commanders. Ravens versus the Giants.
Surprise, surprise. I'm actually going with the Giants this week. I went against them the past 3 weeks and, didn't think that they had it in them. And the way they played against the Packers has kind of opened my eyes. And I think that Saquon's going to carry them to this win. It's going to be very, very close. I am actually going with the Giants in this one against the Ravens.
Okay. I just wonder how much fatigue the Giants are going to be dealing with when they're coming back from London. And especially after a big win like that. You know what I always say, Chase, that when a team comes off a miraculous come from behind win, things really feel different for your team. And that's what the Giants had to do. And, coming back from London, I mean, that's a rough trip. Even if you're going to be back in New York, I mean, that's still a rough trip to try to come back from. So I think the Ravens will be in a better prime position to win this one. So I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens here. Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Indianapolis Colts.
Going with the Jags. They already beat them once this year with the way that the Colts looked on Thursday night. I cannot pick the Colts. I picked them Thursday, and I'm I just can't pick them this time.
I feel the same way. And, the Colts normally do a fantastic job of winning against the Jags in Indy. But the problem is like I said before, they can't score on anybody. I mean, they're just not good. So I'm picking the Jags as well. Patriots versus the Browns.
I'm going Cleveland this time. I went with the Chargers last week. And obviously the pick the pick helped me in my favor. I would have not been disappointed if I got that pick wrong, but I'm going with Cleveland this week. I think that run game is going to be too much for the Patriots, and I think that if we can stop their run and make them pass the ball, that's where our defense is going to thrive and actually do good. And I think that we're going to shut down Bailey Zappe's throwing. So if they run the ball on us, it's going to be a lot closer than what people think. But I'm going with Cleveland in this one by a slim margin, probably by a field goal.
Yeah, I mean, one way or another, I could see either one of these teams winning. But I'm going to go with Cleveland as well. Like you said, I think that them running the football, they're going to be able to handle things a little bit better. They're going to be at home. They're going to be looking for a revenge game. And, I think that they'll find a way to limit the Patriots offensively too. Bengals versus the Saints.
The Saints actually did pretty decent last week, but I'm going to go with the Bengals. The Bengals offense has not been clicking on all cylinders this year. They've had a lot of close games. They've had a lot of games where, like last year, they would have been outscoring their opponents by 25 or more points, but they've all been close, and I'm going to make this one another close win, but I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one.
Yeah, I'm going Bengals as well. I don't trust the Saints. I know they just beat Seattle, but that one's not too crazy for me. Buccaneers versus the Steelers.
I'm going with the Bucs.
I think I have to as well. I mean, as bad as the Bucks have been, I mean, the Steelers have looked terrible. I mean, there's just no way around it. So
Yeah, going with the Bucks.
49ers versus the Falcons.
Ooh, I'm going with the Niners. The way their defense has stepped up and played recently, and ever since Jimmy G's come into that offense from taking over for an injured Trey Lance, he's not skipped a beat, and they've looked really good. So, going with the Niners.
All right. I'm gonna go with the Niners as well. Like you said, number one defense. It's impossible to root against them. Jets versus the Packers. I feel like I know where you're gonna go with this.
Why? Give me the Jets.
I'm going with the Jets here too, buddy.
Are you really?
Yes. Green Bay coming back from London, playing the way that they did, man. I don't think they're going to be ready. I don't think they're going to be ready. So I think the Jets got this one.
Not to mention the Jets put up 40 on the Dolphins. And
yeah, I know.
Yes, that's because of the third string quarterback, but Breece Hall was running out of his freaking mind.
They had a great game. Week. The Vikings versus the Dolphins.
Again, Tua's not back. Teddy Bridgewater's out. They're going with the third string quarterback. I'm going with the Vikings in this one.
I feel like I have to as well because, I mean, we've seen the entire Dolphins team doesn't look the same, especially defensively, unless Skylar Thompson really does a fantastic job of staying on the football field. I just don't know if the Vikings can offensively can put up points on anybody. So I'll go with the Vikings here as well. Panthers versus the Rams.
I'm going to go with the Panthers.
Okay. I can see where the argument is.
I'm going with the Panthers because 9 times out of 10, every time we see a coach fired midway through the season, usually the very first game that they play after that, the team normally always wins with the fired head coach. And it's usually the first game, and that could be the only game that they win, but usually it's that game. Plus the Rams have not been looking good. The Panthers have a pretty decent defense. It's all a matter of who's going to be the quarterback for them. I think that the Panthers are going to squeak out with the win by a slim margin, so I'm going with the Panthers.
I am going to go with the Los Angeles Rams here. I know that the Rams have looked terrible offensively, but the Panthers, like we said, we don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. Their offensive game plan and everything has just looked terrible. The Rams do have a good defense. I look for them to be able to still slow them down. And now you got rumors of all these Carolina Panthers players on the route of being traded. I just don't think the locker room culture is really good right now. So even though the Rams have been playing terrible, I still trust their leadership over the Panthers. So I'm going to go with Sean McVay and the Rams here. Okay. Cardinals versus the Seahawks.
Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cards as well. The Bills versus the Chiefs.
I'm going Chiefs, baby.
Going Chiefs?
Yes, I am.
Oh, man.
Go with the Chiefs, baby.
Man. That's a tough one, dude, because I don't know. I think that
say it with your Dick Vitale voice. Who are you going with?
I'm riding with Bills country right here. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills in this game, man.
You got the Buffalo Bills,
the Buffalo Bills, baby. The crowd's gonna be absolutely crazy. I just have to go with the Bills here. They've been dominating every team they've played since even when they were playing against the Dolphins. They still were beating them in every aspect. I know the Chiefs are going to provide a different outcome, but I mean, right now, the best offense in the NFL is the Bills. I don't know if the Chiefs will have enough to keep up with them, to be honest, especially after coming back from behind when it came to the Raiders.
Derek, growing up, we've seen Tom Brady and Peyton Manning battle it out. I feel like that's what it's going to be with Patrick Mahomes and
Josh Allen going forward. Oh, this is going to be so much more exciting. So much more exciting because these guys are offensive juggernauts, man. I mean, they're craziness.
They really are. And like, that's why, like, until I feel like Patrick Mahomes is Brady in this sense, and Josh Allen is Peyton Manning, you got to be the best to beat the best. And until you beat the best, which is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, you are not going to be the best. I have no hate at all towards the Bills, and I hope they win the Super Bowl this year, but I'm going Kansas City just because it's hard to go against them, man.
Yeah, I understand. It's hard to go against that. It's an easy out to go with the Chiefs because they almost always win. But I'm riding with the Bills this time. I think they got something to
Bills
prove.
Mafia
Here.
There you go,
Bills
baby.
Mafia, baby. I hope y'all are out there. Sunday night game, the Cowboys versus the Eagles.
Give me the rush. I'm going with Cooper. I'm going to go with the boys.
Cooper. Hey.
Going with them boys to beat the Eagles this week. Cooper Rush has been playing out of his mind. He's been lights out ever since coming in. And I think that this controversy is going to keep continuing. Give me the boys, baby.
I don't know, man. This one's tough. I picked against the Eagles last week, and my result ended up not being great. My only difference is with just the way the Eagles run things. They got a much better offensive line. You know, I think that they got a much better offensive line. I think they can protect against the rush. I would say if this was in Arlington, I would pick the Cowboys.
You're going with the Eagles
again?
I'm going
with the Eagles here.
Oh,
they're going to say 6-0. They're going to say 6-0.
We'll see after this week, baby.
Broncos and Chargers, Monday Night Football.
Broncos country. Let's ride. No, I'm going with the Chargers. Screw that.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like I said, the only team that is worse at scoring points than the Broncos is the Colts. Okay, so I mean we'll never know, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Chargers there. All right, well that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. This one was a lot of fun. Certainly hope that I regain my lead on Chase this week.
Not gonna happen.
This is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good rest of your day.